island of Monte Cristo, all I possess jewels, diamonds, gems, that I alone may amount to nearly 2 mil will find on raising the 20th row creek to the east in a right line. Two open in these caves, the treasure is in the furthest day, which treasure I bequeath and leave an as my sole heir. Twenty-fifth of April, 1498. Says. And now, said the Abbé, read this other paper, and he presented to Dantes a second leaf with fragments of lines written on it, which Edmund read as follows. Ing invited to dine by His Holiness, content with making me pay for my hat, serves for me the fate of Cardinals Caprara. I declare to my nephew, Guido Spada, read in a place he knows the caves of the smallest of ingots, gold, money, know of the existence of this treasure, which lions of Roman crowns, and which he see cave from the small ings have been made Galen the second, tired to him our Spada. Faria followed him with an excited look, and now, he said, when he saw that Dantes had read the last line, put the two fragments together, and judge for yourself. Dantes obeyed, and the conjoined pieces gave the following. This 25th day of April, 1498, being invited to dine by His Holiness Alexander VI, and fearing that note content with making me pay for my hat, he may desire to become my heir, and reserves for me the fate of Cardinals Caprara and Benevoglio, who were poisoned, he declared to my nephew, Guido Spada, my sole heir, that I have buried in a place he knows and has visited with me, that is, in caves of the small island of Monte Cristo, all I possess of ingots, gold, money, jewels, diamonds, gems, that I alone know of the existence of this treasure, which may amount to nearly 2 millions of Roman crowns, and which he will find on raising the 20th rock from the small creek to the east in a right line. Two openings have been made in these caves, the treasure is in the furthest angle in the second, which treasure I bequeath and leave entire to him as my sole heir. Twenty-fifth of April, 1498. Caesar Spada. Well, do you comprehend now? Inquired Faria. It is the declaration of Cardinal Spada, and the will so long sought for, replied Edmund, still incredulous. Yes, 1,000 times, yes. And who completed it as it now is? I did. Aided by the remaining fragment, I guessed the rest, measuring the length of the lines by those of the paper, and divining the hidden meaning by means of what was in part revealed, as we are guided in a cavern by the small ray of light above us. And what did you do when you arrived at this conclusion? I resolved to set out, and did set out at that very instant, carrying with me the beginning of my great work, the unity of the Italian kingdom, but for some time the imperial police, who at this period, quite contrary to what Napoleon desired so soon as he had a son born to him, wished for a partition of provinces, had their eyes on me, and my hasty departure, the cause of which they were unable to guess, having aroused their suspicions, I was arrested at the very moment I was leaving Piombino. Now, continued Faria, addressing Dantes with an almost paternal expression, now, my dear fellow, you know as much as I do myself. If we ever escape together, half this treasure is yours. If I die here, and you escape alone, the whole belongs to you. But, inquired Dantes hesitating, has this treasure no more legitimate possessor in the world than ourselves? No, no, be easy on that score, the family is extinct. The last Count of Spada, moreover, made me his heir, bequeathing to me this symbolic breviary. He bequeathed to me all it contained. No, no, make your mind satisfied on that point. If we lay hands on this fortune, we may enjoy it without remorse. And you say this treasure amounts to 2 millions of Roman crowns, nearly 13 millions of our money, $2,600,000 in 1894. Impossible, said Dantes, staggered at the enormous amount. Impossible? And why? Asked the old man. The Spada family was one of the oldest and most powerful families of the 15th century, and in those times, when other opportunities for investment were wanting, such accumulations of gold and jewels were by no means rare. There are at this day Roman families perishing of hunger, though possessed of nearly 1 million in diamonds and jewels, handed down by entail, and which they cannot touch. Edmund thought he was in a dream, he wavered between incredulity and joy. I have only kept this secret so long from you, continued Faria, that I might test your character, and then surprise you. Had we escaped before my attack of catalepsy, I should have conducted you to Monte Cristo. Now, he added, with a sigh, it is you who will conduct me thither. Well, Dantes, you do not thank me? This treasure belongs to you, my dear friend, replied Dantes, and to you only. I have no right to it. I am no relation of yours. You are my son, Dantes, exclaimed the old man. You are the child of my captivity. My profession condemns me to celibacy. God has sent you to me to console, at one and the same time, the man who could not be a father, and the prisoner who could not get free. And Faria extended the arm of which alone the use remained to him to the young man who threw himself upon his neck and wept. Chapter 19. The Third Attack. Now that this treasure, which had so long been the object of the abbé's meditations, could ensure the future happiness of him whom Faria really loved as a son, it had doubled its value in his eyes, and every day he expatiated on the amount, explaining to Dantes all the good which, with 13 or 14 millions of francs, a man could do in these days to his friends, and then Dantes' countenance became gloomy, for the oath of vengeance he had taken recurred to his memory, and he reflected how much ill, in these times, a man with 13 or 14 millions could do to his enemies. The abbé did not know the island of Monte Cristo, but Dantes knew it, and had often passed it, situated 25 miles from Pinoza, between Corsica and the island of Elba, and had once touched there. This island was, always had been, and still is, completely deserted. It is a rock of almost conical form, which looks as though it had been thrust up by volcanic force from the depth to the surface of the ocean. Dantes drew a plan of the island for Faria, and Faria gave Dantes advice as to the means he should employ to recover the treasure. But Dantes was far from being as enthusiastic and confident as the old man. It was past a question now that Faria was not a lunatic, and the way in which he had achieved the discovery, which had given rise to the suspicion of his madness, increased Edmund's admiration of him, but at the same time Dantes could not believe that the deposit, supposing it had ever existed, still existed, and though he considered the treasure as by no means chimerical, he yet believed it was no longer there. However, as if fate resolved on depriving the prisoners of their last chance, and making them understand that they were condemned to perpetual imprisonment, a new misfortune befell them. The gallery on the seaside, which had long been in ruins, was rebuilt. They had repaired it completely, and stopped up with vast masses of stone the hole Dantes had partly filled in. But for this precaution, which, it will be remembered, the Abbé had made to Edmund, the misfortune would have been still greater, for their attempt to escape would have been detected, and they would undoubtedly have been separated. Thus a new, a stronger, and more inexorable barrier was interposed to cut off the realization of their hopes. "You see," said the young man, with an air of sorrowful resignation, to Faria, "that God deems it right to take from me any claim to merit for what you call my devotion to you. I have promised to remain forever with you, and now I could not break my promise if I would. The treasure will be no more mine than yours, and neither of us will quit this prison. But my real treasure is not that, my dear friend, which awaits me beneath the somber rocks of Monte Cristo. It is your presence, our living together 5 or 6 hours a day, in spite of our jailers. It is the rays of intelligence you have elicited from my brain, the languages you have implanted in my memory, and which have taken root there with all their philological ramifications. These different sciences that you have made so easy to me by the depth of the knowledge you possess of them, and the clearness of the principles to which you have reduced them, this is my treasure, my beloved friend, and with this you have made me rich and happy. Believe me, and take comfort, this is better for me than tons of gold and cases of diamonds, even were they not as problematical as the clouds we see in the morning floating over the sea, which we take for terra firma, and which evaporate and vanish as we draw near to them. To have you as long as possible near me, to hear your eloquent speech, which embellishes my mind, strengthens my soul, and makes my whole frame capable of great and terrible things, if I should ever be free, so fills my whole existence, that the despair to which I was just on the point of yielding when I knew you, has no longer any hold over me, and this is my fortune, not chimerical, but actual. I owe you my real good, my present happiness, and all the sovereigns of the earth, even Caesar Borgia himself, could not deprive me of this. Thus, if not actually happy, yet the days these two unfortunates passed together went quickly. Faria, who for so long a time had kept silence as to the treasure, now perpetually talked of it. As he had prophesied would be the case, he remained paralyzed in the right arm and the left leg, and had given up all hope of ever enjoying it himself. But he was continually thinking over some means of escape for his young companion, and anticipating the pleasure he would enjoy. For fear the letter might be some day lost or stolen, he compelled Dantes to learn it by heart, and Dantes knew it from the first to the last word. Then he destroyed the second portion, assured that if the first were seized, no one would be able to discover its real meaning. Whole hours sometimes passed while Faria was giving instructions to Dantes, instructions which were to serve him when he was at liberty. Then, once free, from the day and hour and moment when he was so, he could have but one only thought, which was, to gain Monte Cristo by some means, and remain there alone under some pretext which would arouse no suspicions, and once there, to endeavor to find the wonderful caverns, and search in the appointed spot, be it remembered, being the farthest angle in the second opening.